Hey guys, so I wanted to tell this interesting little story about what happened when my ex and I were living in the same house and essentially manifesting two different things or experiencing something in a completely different way with a completely different mindset. I found this really shocking at the time, how this played out, but it's, I think, a great example of how things will be orchestrated to sort of fulfill the mental state of both parties involved. So my ex and I moved back to the town that I grew up in 2014. I lived in Chicago for a long time and then somewhere in the north burbs of Illinois with my ex, and then we ended up moving back to where I was from. And we moved, actually, there just happened to be a house that popped up on the street I grew up on, which was where I really wanted to live. The town I live in is okay, but I really love the street I grew up on for obvious reasons. You know, I lived there since I was 3 years old, and just had a bunch of friends on that street growing up, and actually ended up buying the house of a friend of mine from high school whose dad had passed away not long before I started looking for a house, and we ended up getting our offer accepted amongst many on that house because I knew the person and was able to reach out to her on Facebook and say, hey, it's me, please accept my offer. Anyway, we moved back onto the street where I grew up. And in my time growing up, my impression of the town I lived in was pretty much idyllic. It was just, I feel like I had kind of an idyllic childhood. My ex, on the other hand, had a completely different view of it. He was very concerned about security. We moved into a house that didn't have a fence in the backyard. It was just like wide open to the alley. And I was just like, it's not a big deal. There's not like a lot of crime around here. I've lived on the street forever and there's never been one incident of anything. I've parked my car on the street here for years and years at a time, never been broken into. I've never heard of anything happening here. As far as I know, no one's ever been robbed here. Like, I was just like, your concerns are totally unfounded. And so he still insisted on putting up a fence in the backyard and everything. And it was incredibly expensive because I was like, well, if we're putting up a fence, it has to be like a really nice one. I don't want to look at some piece of shit every day. So we ended up blowing all this money on this super expensive fence. And weeks after the fence went in, our house was burglarized, which I've literally never heard of anything. If you knew the amount of mental sort of intense energy he had about the security of the area, you know, I was just like, at the time I was like, you made this happen. Like, this was because of where you were putting your thoughts, blah, blah, blah. But so here's the interesting stuff. So my mind is like, this place is completely safe. This is home. I'm not, you know, I used to go for walks when I was like in my early 20s, living at my mom's briefly. I would go for walks at like 2 a.m. around the neighborhood. I never had a single moment of anything, any fear, even seeing anybody. Like, there was just nobody around. So that was my vibe. I was basically in this is a safe place to be vibe. Nothing's going to happen. And he was in your town is turning into kind of like a place with more crime. And I'm concerned and we need to like really secure the perimeter. So coming at it from these two different things, and out of the thousands of houses in this town, ours is the one that gets burglarized. And here's the part about it that's interesting. So the house we moved into needed both of the bathrooms to be rehabbed. So you could like take a shower in there, but I like to take a bath and there was just no freaking way I was taking a bath in either of these bathrooms. So occasionally I would go and spend the night at a hotel. There's some new hotels in this town. And so I would go, I like staying in hotels. So I would go just get a hotel room for the night. In one of the rooms, I had like a jacuzzi tub, you know, just like watch movies, hang out on my laptop, play video games, take a bath, you know, just do this every now and then, like once every 6 months or so. I did this in the other places we lived also that didn't have a bathtub. So the exact timing of this burglary happened when I had packed up all of my expensive belongings, my laptop, my iPad, my iPod, this was a while ago, my phone, everything I had, basically everything valuable with me, happened to book a hotel for the exact time that this thing happened. So I'm at a hotel My ex goes to work the next morning. I still hadn't like checked out. I think I was staying for 2 days or something. And I'm in this hotel and he calls me. He's like, we got burglarized. So they took all of his stuff. I think I've mentioned before that he's a music producer. So he has all this expensive stuff in his home studio. They took like all of it. They literally did not take a single thing of mine. I was gone. So my damage was minimized. And thank God, like they left all the doors to the house open, and my beloved pet cat, who was like 17 at the time, was just like hiding in a closet. She didn't like run out the door. Thank God. So nothing happened to my cat. Nothing happened to any of my stuff. And, that was basically that for me. I was, whenever you get burglarized or anything like that, I was kind of shell shocked for like a week. We had to clean everything up. But other than that, I was not affected. And needless to say, my ex was just like completely, all of his shit was gone. He was completely traumatized that this thing that he was afraid was going to happen, happened. He was kind of like obsessed with the people that did it. They actually robbed somebody else, like about a week later. They robbed a Marine, and he was home, and he like tackled one of them and held him down until the cops came, and then they all got busted. So they actually did all get busted. But so my ex was like obsessed with that. Kate, watching what was happening with them getting charged and all that. He was just like, and he's the one that got affected. So I just, I don't think this is going to be able to be a long video. I don't have a lot other to say about that, other than to say that there's how many of these things like can happen to one person before you just say that can't be a coincidence? So I guess, the lesson here is that if you keep your energy clean, the divine intelligence, whatever is making things happen for people around you, you will find yourself unscathed. This has been my experience, that I seem to come out of things unscathed based on some aspect of my personality that doesn't seem to invite these types of things to happen. Whereas, you can, and even if you're sharing a space with another person, I don't think a single thing of mine was gone. I'm trying to remember. We got kind of a huge payout too from the homeowner's insurance, which then my ex didn't even replace any of his stuff. So we ended up getting like $15,000 or something out of that. And a brand new door that couldn't be kicked in, and a bunch of other stuff. So I don't know. It worked out for me. Not so much for him. Eventually he kind of dropped the whole thing and started to come around to the idea that he was focusing on this thing and it happened. But, I don't know, like, I don't think that necessarily if you have something bad happen to you, it's because you thought it was going to happen. But, I would definitely beware of focusing on a negative thing that could happen and just thinking about it and trying to protect against it and all of that stuff. You can do the same activity from different mentalities. I don't think there's a problem with putting up a fence. By the way, putting up the fence provided these burglars with the cover that they needed. They parked in the alley, jumped over the fence, and then basically had total privacy to try to kick in the back door. They ended up being able to kick in a side door, and then they were able to just cart everything out without anybody seeing them. So the fence actually did not provide security from the thing that my ex was concerned about. It does prevent people from just like walking up to the house though. So like, I don't know, you could put a fence in to keep people from coming up to your house or whatever, but you don't have to do it with this idea of there's bad people out there trying to get me. You could just do it with like, a different mentality. I don't think it makes any sense to not ever do anything to try to protect yourself or anything like that, but you have to do it with the feeling of I'm safe, not I'm scared and I'm doing this, because of fear. I don't know. You can make of that what you will, but I just think that is such a weird, it's such a perfect way that played out based on the mentalities of the two people involved, that I just don't think that it can be explained any other way. I mean, if that's a coincidence, I experience a major coincidence like 10 times a year. I have so many examples of that exact type of thing. So, yeah, there's an example of how things play out when there are two people occupying the same space with two totally different mentalities, where one of them is strong enough to create a negative event and how the other one, you know, magically was set up to skate through it without any consequences, really. So I don't know, do with that what you will. Just lending more credence to the whole thoughts create reality, mentality creates reality. I guess that's what I'm doing here. Making believers. Have a great day.